It was late, and the city streets were quiet. The lights of the city glowed softly in the distance as Leo, a young man in his mid-20s, walked home after a long, exhausting day at work. He'd been busy all day, and all he wanted now was to finally relax. But just as he was about to head home, his phone rang. It was a call from one of his colleagues. "Hey, Leo, are you free?" His colleague's voice came through the phone. "Ms. Lynn's really drunk, and she won't let anyone help her. She keeps asking for you." Leo froze for a second. His boss, Ms. Lynn, never drank. "So why tonight? What happened?" he muttered to himself as he turned around, flagging down a taxi. "She never drinks. What happened tonight?" The scene shifted to a busy restaurant where Ms. Lynn was sitting alone at a table. Her head rested on her arm, and her eyes were glassy, as if she was barely holding it together. A few colleagues stood by, looking unsure of what to do. Leo walked up to her, concern on his face. "Ms. Lynn, are you okay?" She lifted her head slightly, a small, unsteady smile forming on her lips. "Leo, you came. I told them you'd come." Leo hesitated for a moment, but then he gently helped her up. She stumbled a little, and he quickly steadied her, trying to keep things respectful, though he was just as unsure of what to do as everyone else. One of his colleagues, standing off to the side, whispered to another, "They seem close, huh?" Leo could barely focus on their words, his mind racing. Ms. Lynn, the powerful, always-in-control boss, was now so different. Lost, even. He offered her his arm to lean on. "Don't worry, I'll take you home," he said softly, doing his best to reassure her, even though he wasn't sure what was really going on. As they walked out of the restaurant together, the scene faded out, and the taxi pulled away into the night, leaving them both to figure out what would come next. The taxi ride was quiet. City lights flashed by outside, casting brief glows on the interior of the car. Miss Lynn, or rather, Yuna now, rested her head gently on Leo's shoulder, her body half asleep. Leo glanced over at her, unsure of what to say. It felt so strange. Just hours ago, she had been giving him orders, telling him exactly what to do at work. And now, here she was, leaning on him like an old friend. He glanced ahead, his voice quiet. "Are you okay, Miss Lynn?" But she stirred a little, her eyes still closed, and murmured, "Don't call me that. Just call me Yuna." Leo blinked, caught off guard by her request. He nodded slowly, a bit unsure, but respecting her wishes. "Okay, Yuna." The taxi driver glanced up in the rearview mirror, but didn't say a word. The car pulled up to an upscale apartment building, and the driver spoke up, breaking the silence. "We're here," he said. Leo gently nudged Yuna, hoping she wouldn't be too groggy. "Yuna, we're home. Can you walk?" She barely stirred, murmuring in a sleepy voice, "Don't leave me, okay?" Leo smiled softly, then helped her out of the taxi. He grabbed her bag and kept a steady arm around her to support her as they made their way toward the building. The doorman saw them coming and, without saying anything, opened the door for them, giving them both a quiet nod. As they walked inside, Leo couldn't shake the feeling that he was seeing a side of Yuna he'd never known. She wasn't the confident, powerful boss who ran the office with an iron fist. She was vulnerable now, fragile almost, and somehow he was the only one she trusted. Inside the elevator, Yuna leaned against the wall, her eyes half-lidded as she looked at him. Her voice was soft when she spoke, barely a whisper. "You're kind. Most people just want something from me." Leo looked at her gently, his voice just as soft. "I don't want anything. I just want to help." For a moment, Yuna smiled, a small, tired smile, before closing her eyes again. Leo could tell that she was slipping back into sleep, but there was something different now. Something had shifted between them. And in that moment, Leo realized something too. This wasn't just about helping her home anymore. Something was changing, for both of them. The elevator door opened, and the scene faded to black. The apartment was cozy, dimly lit, with soft, warm tones that felt inviting, but there was an emptiness to it too. Leo gently guided Yuna inside, helping her sit down on the couch. "Just sit here for a second," he said softly. "I'll get you some water." He walked into the kitchen, and as he moved around, he noticed the apartment. It was stylish, sure, but there was something missing. No photos on the walls, no signs of personal life. It felt quiet, too quiet, like no one really lived there. He returned with a glass of water and handed it to her. Her hands trembled just a bit as she took it from him. "Thanks," she whispered, her voice low. "You didn't have to do all this." Leo sat down across from her on the coffee table. He looked at her, a little unsure, but trying to keep things light. "You would have done the same if it were me." Una let out a short laugh, but there was a bitterness in it. "No, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't even know how. I don't even have friends." Leo paused for a moment, studying her. Then he spoke, quietly but honestly. "That's not true. I think you just don't let people get close." Una stared at him for a second, surprised by how open he was. She stayed quiet for a while, processing his words. "Maybe I forgot how," she said softly, almost to herself. She leaned back on the couch, looking up at the ceiling as if searching for something. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I work all the time. I try to be strong. But tonight, I just felt tired of pretending I'm fine." Leo sat quietly, thinking before he spoke. "You don't have to pretend with me." Her eyes softened as she looked at him, and for a moment something in her posture seemed to relax. That night, it wasn't just her heels she took off. She took off her armor, too. Una leaned her head back again, staring up at the ceiling light. She asked, almost as if she was questioning herself, "Do you think I'm difficult?" Leo paused, then said simply, "I think you're human." A small, sad smile appeared on her face. For the first time in a long time, it looked like she believed it. The scene faded as they sat there in quiet understanding, the weight of the night settling between them. A few minutes later, Una had changed into something more comfortable, a simple oversized sweatshirt and leggings. She walked back into the living room, where Leo was still tidying up the coffee table. She looked at him, her voice soft and quiet. "You didn't have to stay, but I'm glad you did." Leo smiled politely, but there was warmth in his eyes. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." Una sat down across from him. For a moment, there was silence between them. It wasn't uncomfortable, though. It was peaceful, like the quiet after a storm. Then Una spoke again, her voice gentle. "Do you ever feel like you're wearing a mask all the time?" Leo nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful. "Yeah, especially at work. Everyone's trying so hard to look strong." Una's eyes lowered for a moment, and she nodded in agreement. "That's me, always strong, always in control, but inside, I feel like I'm just trying not to fall apart." Leo watched her quietly for a second, then spoke, his voice calm and sincere. "I think letting people in doesn't make you weak. It makes you real." Una looked at him, holding his gaze for just a moment longer than usual. Then she glanced away, a little embarrassed, maybe. "You're different. You don't treat me like a boss. You treat me like a person." Leo smiled gently, his voice warm. "That's because you are one." They both laughed. It was soft, natural, and for a brief second, the tension between them seemed to melt away. Una stretched, looking out the window at the city lights. "Do you want some tea?" she asked, her voice lighter. Leo smiled. "Sure." Cut to the kitchen, where they were making tea together. It was simple, quiet, and maybe even a little awkward, but there was warmth there, the kind of warmth that didn't need words to be felt. There was no grand confession, no dramatic music, just two people, learning to be honest in a world that often demands they hide. As they sat back down with their tea, the clock ticked softly in the background. The night seemed slower now, like it was stretching itself a little longer, reluctant to end. Una looked at him, her voice soft. "Thank you, Leo, for treating me like more than a title." Leo met her eyes, a sincere smile on his face. "You're welcome, Una." They shared a smile. This time, it wasn't forced. It was real. The soft glow of early morning light filtered through the apartment window, casting a warm, gentle light across the room. Outside, the city was just beginning to wake up, and the faint sound of birds chirping could be heard in the distance. Leo was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a light blanket. Yuna walked in quietly from the hallway, looking more refreshed now, her hair brushed, her face calm and peaceful. She paused for a moment, standing in the doorway, just watching him sleep. Her expression was soft, thoughtful. Leo stirred, waking up slowly, and sat up. When he noticed Yuna standing there, he gave her a sleepy smile. "Morning," he said, his voice still a little groggy. Yuna smiled back, holding a mug of coffee in her hands. "Morning. I made coffee. You still drink it black?" Leo raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You remembered." They sat at the small kitchen table, sipping their coffee. There was a comfortable pause between them, the kind of silence that wasn't awkward, just peaceful. Yuna broke the silence first, her voice a little more serious. "I was thinking maybe we should forget last night ever happened." Leo's smile faded just a little, but he nodded slowly, understanding. "If that's what you want." Yuna looked at him, her gaze soft, but then she shook her head. "No, I mean, not forget it. Just not pretend it meant nothing." Leo looked up at her, surprised by her words. She spoke quietly, almost as if she was still processing what had happened. "You saw me, the real me, and you didn't walk away. That means something." Leo smiled again, a little more genuinely this time. "It does. To me too." They finished their coffee in silence, and the air between them felt different now, warmer, more hopeful. It was as if something unspoken had changed. Cut to Leo, standing by the door, slipping on his jacket. "So, see you at work?" he asked, turning to her with a teasing grin. Yuna smirked lightly, her voice playful. "I might be a little nicer today." Leo raised an eyebrow, his tone teasing. "Should I be worried?" They both laughed, and it was like the weight of everything that had happened melted away, leaving only the connection they had found. He opened the door and paused, looking back at her. "Take care of yourself, Yuna." Yuna's voice was soft as she replied, "You too, Leo." As Leo stepped out, Yuna stood there for a moment, alone but not lonely. The world outside was waiting, but inside she didn't feel quite as empty anymore. The screen faded to black, and soft piano music began to play, carrying the feeling of a new beginning. A few days later, the office was quiet. It was late evening, and most of the employees had already gone home. Leo was still at his desk, finishing up some paperwork when he heard soft footsteps approaching. Yuna entered the room, holding 2 cups of coffee. She walked over to him and gently set one down beside him. Leo laughed softly, watching her. "Never thought I'd see you bargain over street food." Yuna shrugged, giving him a playful smile. "I'm full of surprises." They continued walking through the market, and Leo gently took her hand. She hesitated for just a second, but then she laced her fingers through his, the simple act feeling like a small, quiet promise. Later, the scene shifted to a quiet rooftop. The city lights stretched out below them, the night slowly settling in around them. They sat side by side, just watching the view, letting the moment speak for itself. Yuna turned to Leo, her voice soft. "Do you think this can last?" Leo looked at her, his expression calm and steady. "I think, as long as we keep being honest, it already has." Yuna leaned her head on his shoulder, a small, contented sigh escaping her. Leo kissed the top of her head gently, his hand resting on hers. It was a few nights later. The office had long gone quiet, but the lights in Yuna's office were still on. Leo stood at her door, hesitating for a moment before knocking gently. She looked up from her computer, surprised but happy to see him. "Yuna." "Hey, I thought you left already." Leo, smiling. "I was about to, just wanted to check on you." Yuna closed her laptop slowly and leaned back in her chair, letting out a tired breath. "Yuna, it's been a long day." Leo walked in, took a seat across from her. There was a calm between them, no rush, just the comfort of being near each other. Yuna, softly, "Sometimes I still wonder if this, whatever we are, is okay." Leo, "I think the best things don't always make sense to everyone, just to the people in them." She stood up and walked over to him, slowly. When she stopped in front of him, She looked into his eyes, searching, maybe for reassurance, maybe for courage. Yuna, quietly, "And what do you see when you look at me?" Leo didn't rush his answer. He stood just inches from her now. "Leo, I see the real you, and I like what I see." There was a pause, the kind where nothing needs to be said anymore, and then, gently, they leaned in toward each other. The space between them disappeared. Their lips met. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft, warm, like they'd both been holding their breath for a while, and finally let go. They pulled apart slowly, both a little breathless, their foreheads resting together. No one said a word, and they didn't need to. In that moment, everything was clear. The seasons passed quietly. What started as one unexpected night slowly turned into something neither of them had planned, but both of them needed. There were no big announcements, no office gossip, just small moments, coffee in the mornings, quiet dinners after long days, inside jokes shared in passing glances. Their love didn't ask for attention. It simply grew. Over time, things changed. They traveled. They fought and made up. They built a rhythm together, messy, imperfect, but real. They moved in together, learned each other's routines, grew closer with every argument they worked through, and every Sunday they spent doing nothing at all. Then one day, Leo asked a question, not with a big crowd or a spotlight, just the two of them in their tiny kitchen, flour on her cheek and dough on his hands. "Will you marry me?" Yuna laughed, then cried, then said yes, all within a breath. Their wedding was simple. Close friends, soft music, no pressure, just vows whispered from the heart, tears shared without shame, and a kiss that sealed years of growth, healing, and quiet, patient love. And life after that? Well, it wasn't perfect. It was better. There were early morning walks, long talks over wine, hard days when they leaned on each other, and peaceful nights where just being together felt like enough. They still worked hard, still had their own paths, but every evening they came home, to the same place, to the same person, to the same love that had started in a moment of unexpected vulnerability. And in the end, the story wasn't about a boss and her employee. It was about two people who met as strangers, became something more, and chose every day to stay. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more quiet stories that speak loud truths. And hey, tell us in the comments, have you ever found love where you least expected it?